WPIAL podcast on the Trib Live High School Sports Network, getting you ready for semifinal Friday, Final Four Friday. That's what we call it. Final Four Friday and Championship Saturday in the WPIAL postseason, which is merging, by the way. More on that in a moment. This podcast and really everything we've been doing here in the postseason, presented by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go with Edgar Snyder, helping injured people since 1982. EdgarSnyder.com for all your legal needs. We thank them. All right. This is the merge point where the district playoffs all throughout the Commonwealth become the state playoffs. This weekend is the first round of the PIAA playoffs. It's also, as far as the district is concerned, the semifinals in 5A, 3A, 2A, and Class A, and the championships in 4A and 6A. Outside the district, the only other team that really is in action, and they're back in action, is Westinghouse. All the other City League reps trying to get into the state playoffs failed on their first try. Westinghouse hasn't played since they lost to University Prep in the City League championship game. That's 2 weeks off they've had. They will begin Class A state playoff action this week on the road at Myersdale, the District 5 champions. That's a 7 o'clock kick on Friday. All right, we'll start with the championship games. On Saturday, beginning at noon, the Class 4A title game. The top seed McKeesport Tigers there, as I think a lot of people expected. Aliquip, I'm not sure. This may be one of their more, I don't want to say surprising, because it's not like they were heavy underdogs against Trinity, even though it was a 7-2 game. Some probably looked at them as the favorite in that game. Maybe a slight underdog last week when they took on Newcastle in the 4A semifinals, having lost to the Red Hurricanes earlier this year. But, when Aliquippa gets to the finals, and we're kind of used to that, right? 17th time in 18 years, they're usually the team to beat or one of the favorites. It's no surprise. And again, not to color this as a surprise that they are there, but there were probably a fair amount of people that did not have the Quips reaching the district championship game. But Coach Warfield has them back in the finals last week, blanking Newcastle by a score of 14-0. All the both touchdowns coming in the second half. J.J. Work had a big game, 167 yards, and he had one of those 2 touchdowns for the Quips, who are now 8-3. Getting ready for the championship game in a rematch of the 2023 finals. They will take on the McKeesport Tigers, improved to 9-3 as well, with a victory over Thomas Jefferson, the team that beat them earlier this year, the team that beat them in the 4A championship game a year ago. 28-3, very dominant performance for the Tigers defense, and another dominant performance by their star running back, Keemon Spell, the junior. Simply outstanding. 331 yards, including a couple of highlight reel long touchdown runs. He ended up with 3 scores altogether. He also became, as a junior, the Tigers' all-time leading rusher. Now, again, think about that. He still has a year left. Missed a couple games earlier this year because of injury. It says a lot how amazing this young man is. 28-3. McKeesport over Thomas Jefferson. So, again, it's a noon kickoff for Aliquippa against McKeesport. The Quips have won the most WPIAL championships, so they're trying to add on to that. They have won 20. They look for 21 on Saturday. They have recently won titles in 2023, beating McKeesport 35-21. They also won it in 2022 and 2021. So it would be their 4th championship in the last 5 years. McKeesport, been a little bit of a drought. They have won 4 WPIAL championships, the most recent 20 years ago. This is the 20th anniversary of that 2005 WPIAL and PIAA championship team. So that's the noon game at Pine Richland, not Norwin. We've had those championship games, those other championship games, not at Acrisure, at Norwin in recent years. This will be at Pine Richland High School, the Taj Mahal, as they call it. That's at noon. Then at 6 p.m., ho-hum, Central Catholic against North Allegheny. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Fourth straight time the Vikings and Tigers will meet for the 6A championship 2022. North Allegheny prevailed 35-21 over Central Catholic. Great game in 2023, a wild one with, again, North Allegheny repeating 44-41 over Central Catholic. And then the Vikings turning the tables in impressive fashion a year ago, 45-14, Central Catholic knocking off North Allegheny. Vikings back to the championship game, looking to repeat. They're 10-1 after beating Cannon McMillan for the second time in 3 weeks, 44-7. Chris Black, 168 yards and a touchdown run for the Vikings. Roman Thompson only ran for 60 yards, but had 3 scores for the Vikings. Their opponents, the North Allegheny Tigers, an impressive win over a very good Norwin team. They had to fight and claw to beat the Knights earlier this year, but 35-17, North Allegheny gets the victory. Luke Rohan with a big game for the Tigers, 181 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Brady Brinkley, 6 of 14 passing, 158 yards and 2 scores as the Tigers improved to 8-3 and snapped what was kind of an ugly 2-game losing streak to end the regular season, losing in week 8 to Pine Richland, got mauled by the Rams, and then a stunner in week 9 when they fell to Seneca Valley. So I think a lot of folks sort of thought, well, the door is open for Norwin to finally reach the championship. The Tigers said, and they pick up the win. North Allegheny's won 6 WPIAL championships, the most recent, back-to-back in 2023 and 2022. 9 WPIAL championships for Central Catholic last year. They also won in 2020. They are looking to win their 10th, and that would put them in a tie for the 4th most in WPIAL history. That would tie them with the Jeanette Jayhawks. So that is the 6 p.m. start. North Allegheny Central Catholic take 4. That is Saturday at Pine Richland. Friday, various sites, 8 semifinal games, including in Class 5A. Top seed Pine Richland, 10-1, will be taking on the 5th seed Moon Tigers at 9-3. Moon defeating Penn Trafford last week. Some would call it a bit of a controversial victory, as in a tie game, the Tigers driving what appeared to be a fumble was by Andrew Cross. He was rolled down by the officials, and Moon would go on to score the game-winning points and win 20-13 over Penn Trafford. Speaking of Andrew Cross, 9 of 13 passing, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Tigers. As I mentioned, they improve to 9-3. They'll take on Pine Richland. Ooh, the Rams look good, don't they? 10-1 now in the season. The only loss was way back in week 1 to Central Catholic. Last week in a 42-10 drubbing of Shaler, Aaron Strader, 3 touchdown passes. Our WPIAL Player of the Week for week 11 was Khalil Taylor. 4 touchdowns. He had a 30-yard reception, 90-yard kickoff return, a 9-yard pick 6, and an 87-yard punt return. Phenomenal performance by the former Penn State commit, now getting offers from everybody, Ohio State, Oregon. He's talking to Georgia. But what a game for Khalil Taylor. 42-10, Pine Richland wins. Pine Richland against Moon, 7 o'clock Friday at Chartiers Valley High School. The other semifinal is a game we saw at this point a year ago. Rivals from the Western Sixth Conference, Upper St. Clair and Peters Township for a second straight year meeting for a second time. Now, last year, you'll remember, Upper St. Clair won the regular season game and won the conference championship, but lost to Peters Township in the semifinals. Now the Panthers are going to try to do the double reverse. Peters Township won in the regular season earlier this year, beating Upper St. Clair on their way to the conference championship. They're 11-0 after beating Bethel Park last week, 42-14. Colton Nypaver with 135 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns for the Peters Township Indians. Meanwhile, Upper St. Clair raising a couple eyebrows, winning at Woodland Hills 36-26. Wasn't a good start. They were down 14-0. Scoop Smith returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Didn't look good, but the Panthers fight back and win by 10. John Banbury, 142 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. His running back mate Dante Curry with 101 yards rushing and a touchdown. Panthers now 10-2. They go up against 11-0 Peters Township at Big Mac Stadium in Cannonsburg on Friday at 7 o'clock. All right, 3A semifinals. Speaking of, Pine Richland, they've been dominant pretty much all year. Avonworth has as well in Class 3A. The number 1 seed after a first-round bye began the postseason last week with a 56-7 drubbing of Freeport. Dimitri Valesteras, 111 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns for the Lopes, who improved to 11-0. And on Friday, we'll see a familiar face, the North Catholic Trojans. What a great rivalry this has been over the years, even going back to when these schools were in the smaller classifications, Class A, 2A. North Catholic and Avonworth have had some great matchups. North Catholic goes to Elizabeth Forward, beats the Warriors in a driving rain, 55-32. Joey Felitsky, the WPIAL's leading passer, 13 of 15, which is amazing in and of itself in that kind of weather last week. 263 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 of them to Riker Kennedy, who had 101 yards in receptions. 9-3 for the North Catholic Trojans. I mentioned 11-0 for Avonworth. They will take on each other for the second time this season at North Allegheny High School. Avonworth won the first meeting between the two back in week 8, 42-10. Other semifinal in Class 3A, 11-0 Imani Christian against 7-4 Central Valley. The Saints remain undefeated with a 59-21 victory over Hopewell. Gabe Jenkins, phenomenal season. He had only 56 yards passing and a touchdown, but he also ran for 184 yards and 2 scores. David Davis, 170 yards in the ground and a touchdown for Imani Christian. Ethan Shearer, the big back for Central Valley, 141 yards rushing and a touchdown as the Warriors knocked off Highlands 34-10. 7-4 Central Valley against 11-0 Imani Christian at Montour High School on Friday at 7 o'clock. All right, to the 2A quarterfinals, rematch of a Week 9 battle that decided the Century Conference Championship. It was Seton LaSalle beating Washington a few weeks ago, 27-14. The Rebels and Little Prexies will go at it again. Neutral site at Peters Township Stadium on Friday at 7 o'clock. Seton LaSalle 10-1 after beating Mohawk 42-7. It's a pretty good Mohawk team that they took care of rather easily. Kymar Freeman, 152 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Kia Jones for the Rebels, 7 of 7 passing, 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, for Washington, they rolled past South Allegheny. Again, not a surprise result, but a surprise score, 31-7. Tristan Reed, talented Little Prexies quarterback, 2 touchdowns, One of them was a run, one of them a 23-yard pick six. Javon Woods led the way on the ground with 121 yards rushing for Wash High. Washington 10-2, Seton LaSalle 10-1 at Peters Township on Friday at 7 o'clock. The other semifinal in 2A, the Western Beaver Golden Beavers into the semifinals for the first time in, I think, 30 years. 94 was the last time for Western Beaver. They will take on Steel Valley. The MAC Conference champion Golden Beavers rolled at home over Apollo Ridge in the quarterfinals last week, 41-14. Wyatt Sparbany with 124 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns for the Golden Beavers. Amari Marshall had 103 yards on the ground and 2 scores for Western Beaver, which improves to 10-1. Meanwhile, it was the Deron Barksdale show, kind of used to that. He's had an amazing season, 213 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns as Steel Valley cruises past Elwood City 42-6 to improve to 8-3. Steel Valley against Western Beaver. That game will be at Dormont Stadium at 7 o'clock on Friday. And finally, in Class A, Fort Cherry will take on Laurel in one semifinal matchup. Fort Cherry cruising past Neshannock 36-9 last week in the quarterfinals. It wasn't Matt Sieg, it was Eli Salvini who had the big game for the Rangers, 206 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matt Sieg did his fair share of damage as well, 131 yards on the ground and 2 scores in the Rangers' victory. Meanwhile, Colton Carlson, 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jack Miles, 77 yards and 2 touchdowns as Laurel defeats Chartiers Houston, ending the Cinderella Buck season 40-21. Laurel now 11-1. Only loss of the season was to Bishop Canavan earlier. 12-0 is the record for Fort Cherry. And if you care about those kind of things, they defeated Bishop Canavan earlier this season. They will meet at Tony Dorsett Stadium in Hopewell at 7 o'clock on Friday. The other semifinal matchup, Clairton, the number 2 seed, will be taking on the number 3 seed, the Bishop Canavan Crusaders. This was the only class, by the way, Class A, where all 4, now we're not counting 6A since they only have 4 teams in the playoffs, but the top 4 seeds all reached the semifinals. Only one was Class A. Clairton got there kind of in surprising fashion. They gave up some points, and they gave up a lot of points to the Jeanette Jayhawks. 38-33, Clairton survives. Dion Lovelake's Pompey, 92 yards and 2 touchdowns for the winning Bears. Meanwhile, in the other quarterfinal matchup, Bishop Canavan, there were no shock waves, no suspense, really. They crushed Fraser 50-7. Mayonte Mott, who's had himself a big year, 161 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Receiver turned quarterback DeMar Olds, a touchdown pass and a touchdown run. Crusaders improving to 9-3. The Bears are 11-1. Those 2 teams meet at Fox Chapel High School on Friday at 7 o'clock. We won't have any video, all the video of all these games going through NFHS, but we will have audio on our site of the Class A game between Laurel and Fort Cherry, the 2A game between Steel Valley and Western Beaver, as well as the Washington Seton LaSalle game, and the 5A game between Upper St. Clair and Peters Township, audio on our site. The 2 championship games Saturday, noon for 4A, 6 p.m. for 6A. Both can be heard at hssn.triblive.com. Who we got working that? The 4A game is Kyle Dawson and Greg A. Smith. And then the 6 o'clock game, the 6A championship game, is Sean Saputo and Ed Troop. So that's you can hear that call here on the network. We will have a recap of Friday's action. We're going to do it late Friday night. So the next podcast will just be a Friday semifinal, a Final Four recap, if you will. And then we will have our player of the week, our team of the week, and then we'll get you ready midweek next week for the 4 championship games at Acrisure Stadium, and the winners of the 4A and 6A game will be in the PIAA quarterfinals that weekend, either Friday or Saturday. So we'll talk about those games as well. Thanks to our producer, Chris Lackner, for all of his help, not only here today, but all season long. And thanks again to our friends at Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go local. Go with Edgar, helping injured people since 1982. I'm Don Rebel. We thank you for all your support, all your kind words. We hope you enjoyed our coverage. It's not over yet. Still a couple weeks left before we then switch hats. We wear a lot of hats around here. Not sure if you've noticed that, but we wear a lot of hats. We'll switch hats and get ready for some high school basketball. That season tips off in a couple weeks too. Blink and it goes quick. So hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you this weekend. Rebel Yell Podcast, Trib Live, High School Sports Network.